Hello everyone, my name is Marco with Board Game Revolution, and today we have a sneak peek of Endangered, a game of survival created by Joe Hopkins and published by Grand Gamers Guild. Now in this game, you and your friends are taking the positions of activists trying to save an endangered species from becoming extinct, all the while you're fighting off deforestation and poachers from killing these animals. So before any more of these animals become extinct, let's get right into the components, mechanics, and gameplay. Endangered is a 1 to 5 player action selection, dice rolling cooperative game where your objective is to influence 4 UN ambassadors to stop environmental destruction and save the endangered species. The game comes with 1 double-sided board, over 60 tiles and tokens, 5 roll boards with their own specialty cards and player decks, 25 influence cubes, 12 ambassadors, 2 impact decks, 2 scenario sheets, and a year marker. At the start of each player turn, you're going to grab the roll token and place it on top of the year marker. You will then roll your dice and place it on top of your roll sheet. These are your actions. Here, the zoologist takes her first die and places it on top of relocate, moving 1 animal. You can move animals to any orthogonally connected spot. In this instance, the zoologist moves the tiger down 1 space to make a mating pair. She then grabs her next die and places it on the plan action. This allows her to play a card from her hand. There are 3 types of cards you can play: action, continuous, and immediate. The zoologist is playing an action card, which adds an additional action for all players to use during their turn. She then grabs her last die and tries to play go to work. Because there's already a die on this card, she cannot place it here because it is not greater than a 4. The social media campaign is the only action where you can use any die of any face to use this action. After all actions are complete, we then move to the offspring phase. You will count up the mating pairs and add 1. In this example, she would need a 4 or less to get one of the pairs to mate. She rolls a 1 and we have a successful increase of animal population. You will add 1 offspring to any adjacent mating pair, and for the tiger scenario, one of the mates will move to an adjacent spot. If there is no available adjacent space, we will lose 1 population to the animal. At this point, the player will choose either 1 row or 1 column and roll the black destruction die. With a roll of 3, we will match row 6 with column 3 and put 1 destruction tile on that spot. The forest is now getting smaller. Once both dice are rolled, the player will now go on to the impact phase. There are 2 types of cards within the impact deck: persistent and instant. Persistent effects will happen every turn the conditions are met. Instant effects happen on the turn that they were drawn. Here, the zoologist drew a persistent impact effect and places it on top of the existing impact that's already in play. Once all players have played a turn, we now begin the end of year. First, check to see if this is a voting year. If it is the first voting year, your player count will be in green on the right side of the year track. You will check the endgame conditions, and if you have 4 votes, the game immediately ends and your team is victorious. If you don't have the votes, you will continue play. The last player will pick up the roll tokens and hand them out to each player. Once that is done, they'll then pick 1 player to start the new year. Let's get into the highlights of Endangered. First, the scenarios. In the scenarios, you're going to choose how this game is set up as well as how this game is played, because each scenario changes the phases of this game. So we're going to go, for instance, the tigers. When the tigers mate, not only are they going to have an offspring, but they're also going to migrate away from each other, which expands the territory for the tigers. When this happens, though, you have a bigger risk of them getting killed off by deforestation. And these happen through, actually, the unique impact cards that each scenario has. So you have a game that changes, a different impact card selection for each game, so it actually adds to replayability of this game. The next thing I want to point out about this game is how difficult it is to win. We've played it for the past 2 weeks and maybe won 20% of the time. And that is because just like any true good co-op, it's going to take a lot of cooperation within your characters and building synergies upon one another and putting out new actions with that others can play. Not only that, your end game conditions are not revealed at the beginning of the game. They're actually turned over face down, set up on top of the board. So as you go throughout the game, you're revealing over time how you win. So not only are you focusing on keeping your animals alive, you're now trying to build influence to get these revealed and to figure out how you're going to get the influence and the ambassadors to side with you and vote yes to save these animals. Before I finish with my closing statements, I want to talk about this campaign. If you haven't taken a look at the Kickstarter page yet, the publisher has announced that for every backer and pledge that they get, they're going to donate to the Center of Biological Diversity. Not only that, they're going to also open up a tip jar in the pledge manager for backers to send money as well. Well, we at BGR fully support this, and we're going to do the same. And to find out more about that, go on to the Board Game Revolution community to find out how you can help us. Well, if you like what you see here, make sure to check out the Kickstarter on April 2nd. This has been a sneak peek of Endangered, a Gamer Survival. My name is Marco. You guys have a great night.